part 2 of getting this thing running. So in the last video you saw, we went to turn it over. Pretty bad sounds in the transmission. So today we're going to be taking transmission back out, checking it out, seeing if there's anything I can notice with it. Alex is going to stop by a little later, see if there's anything he notices with it, being that he's the actual certified experienced mechanic here. I'm just like a garage mechanic. I worked as a mechanic for about 6 months, but you know, never went to school for it. So we'll get working on that. We'll have to, the starter's still out, so we'll have to take the battery, starter, anything that's in the way of just the transmission. We're not going to take the whole motor out because I do not feel like redoing the entire wiring harness. So we're just going to drop the transmission from the motor in the car. So we'll have to take that motor mount off, battery tray, anything that's hooked up to it, shift linkage, stuff like that. So we'll get working on that. I got my son with me today, so he'll be helping me do this part of it. And then, like I said, later when Alex comes by, hopefully we can get it figured out what the issue is. We thought it was the starter. Starter still looks good. Thought it was maybe some bolts sticking out or clearances. We couldn't really see anything with that. We took the starter out so you have kind of a view hole on the bell housing area, and Hunter was turning the motor over by hand, and you would only get about 90 degrees and it would lock and stop, and then reverse 90 degrees and it'd lock and stop. So when it was turning over, whatever it's hitting, it was blowing past it. Alex seems to think the transmission might have some tension on it. Not sure exactly what that means. Again, I'm just a garage mechanic. So when I put the transmission on, I did kind of have to suck it up to the motor with the bolts, and he said that's usually a bad sign that it's not lined up correctly. So hopefully it's just pull it off, line it back up, get it on there nice and easy, and then we'll go again. We'll check clearances on all the bolts, make sure none of the bolts in the pressure plate or clutch or flywheel backed out at all. We torqued everything to spec, used Loctite like you're supposed to, like all that. So I'm pretty sure it's not the clutch itself. I think it's maybe just an issue with the transmission having tension, or something I didn't notice that was in the way, or something like that. So we'll get to it. Enough jibber jabber, and try to get it knocked out. Alright, so we got everything undone on the transmission other than the motor mount on this side and the actual bell housing bolts holding it to the motor. So I didn't realize how tight the transmission was to the subframe. You can see where it kind of overlaps the subframe there. So I'm not really wanting to take the whole motor out. So once we get the transmission loose, we'll have to like scoot it back onto the subframe and then tilt it and try to take it out that way. If that doesn't work, then you know we'll have to reassess. But so I got the jack up under it supporting the transmission. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen the motor mounts on this side, and we will try to get it out of there. There's nothing else connected to it other than the mount and the motor itself. So let's get to that. See if we can drop her out from the bottom. Alright guys, so we were able to get the transmission off yesterday. Phone died, so weren't able to video once we actually pulled it off. But it's still off right now. It's kind of shifted a little bit overnight. I just have it sitting in here. Everything looked good. I mean, once I pulled it out, turned the input shaft, the transmission spun and spun and spun, no problem. With it off, I turned the motor over by hand and it spun and spun and spun, no problem. So I think, you know, it was kind of like Alex was saying, when I put it on, it just had a weird tension on it. Maybe the the input shaft was a little, you know, pushed over or something. So he's gonna be here in a little bit, help me try to line it up a little better and get it back on, and then I'll try to throw this thing back together and see about starting it again, or attempting to start it again. And if all turns out good, you know, we should be able to get it on the road this week. So right now I'm just gonna set up the hoist, because I do have to take some pressure off of this motor mount so I can move it out the way. It was a little in the way yesterday when I tried putting the transmission back on by myself. So we're gonna hook the engine hoist up, lift it up a little bit, take that motor mount out of the way, and then once he shows up, you know, we'll use a little combination, maybe him over the top and I'll get up under there, press it, and we'll try to line it back up. But I had it pulled all the way back, and everything looked fine. There was a little nick on the pressure plate of the clutch, but there wasn't any scarring on the inside of the bell housing like it had been hitting. So I'm assuming that happened when I first put the transmission on, or when I took it off yesterday, you know, kind of dropped or whatever, and nicked it. But it's just a little scratch, literally. So it's not like it was like smashing into something or like it will hurt anything. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the engine hoist set up and hooked up, and once Alex gets here, we'll try to line it up, put this thing back together, and try to start it again. Good news and better news. We figured out what the problem was. Alex and Hunter showed up with their mechanical experience and expertise. This was the issue. You can't even see it. Even if I zoom in, I don't even think you'll be able to see it. There's a little nick on this bolt. What was happening was, when I put the motor mount on, it sticks through and comes out on this side. And it was, see that little hole there? It was sticking through just a little too much and was hitting the bolts on the flywheel. If you see that, you see that little Allen bolt right there where his finger is, there's scarring on all of them going around. And I mean, it was just barely hitting, but enough that you don't want it hitting. As you saw in the last clip, we figured out the issue with the tapping, knocking noise, whatever you want to call it. It was that one motor mount bolt. I ended up putting it back in, but what I did was put a nut between, like on the bolt, so it acted like a really fat washer to keep it from going in too far. And I kind of eyeball measured it, so hopefully it's good. If not, I'll just snatch it back out. But yeah, so we're gonna finish, you know, bleeding the clutch, putting the battery in, and stuff we need to do to try to start it. Alright guys, so we got everything where it's gonna be for it to start. I'm gonna try to start it this time because Hunter broke it last time, so but Alex is videoing for us, so he'll get to be here after all his hard work on this thing, you know, doing the head gasket, oil pump, water pump, timing, and freaking wiring harness, everything, you know. So let's see if she'll start this time and be ready for it to be a screamer.
Vacuum on the intake, my car does the same thing.
Well, I made sure to hook it up, but he might have unhooked it, so.
Yeah.
I like how it sounded with just the headers.
I mean, we can leave it like that. Fender exit exhaust, that's what you need right there. Or straight out the hood.
Not till I get turbo.
Ah,
Because everyone's going to think I got a turbo. And then it's just going to be low 125 horsepower D17. Well, there you go, guys. It starts. We might try to fix this vacuum line real quick and get another shot of it running a little smoother. But it's late for me. I got to go to bed at 6 to be up at 2:30. There you go. Fix the issue. All three of us are geniuses. Come to streets near you.
That was great.
You blew the thing.